Two slippery QBs face off in this Monday night matchup as Jaden Daniels heads to Arrowhead to take on Patrick Mahomes. Commanders have only won one of the 11 meetings between these two teams. Can they add a second, or will Kansas City continue to dominate? We'll see in the simulation, but first, let's get behind the bar and make our drink a French flower. Well, closing out a nice and short Week 8 with two teams who practically live in prime time. As I've stated many times, Kansas City Chiefs have the most primetime games this season out of anybody, and the Commanders are going to be right back here again next week. As a result, it's probably not surprising that the drink representatives for both of these teams this week have literally nothing to do with the actual football teams themselves. For the Washington Commanders, we're again going back to Tom Grossi with this week's drink, the Wildflower. Oh yeah, you didn't think I bought this flower crown just to use it in a single bit, did you? Okay, that may have been exactly what I did, but regardless, I'm glad that I get to use it again this week in honor of none other than Wildflower Turquoise. Now, like their previous representative, the Cherry Blossom, the Wildflower is another one of those kind of vibes-based drinks, with no set recipe, but a bunch of different competing takes on the spec. Really, the main ingredient that ties all of them together is our wonderful Elderflower Liqueur. Beyond that, this is a super flexible drink. You know, as long as you stay kind of light and floral, you can call your drink the Wildflower. The base spirit is going to be typically either vodka or gin, maybe some citrus with some lemon juice, or some additional berry flavors. I've also seen a lot of different recipes add in some kind of sparkling component to the drink, really kind of adding to those light and floral vibes. Kansas City's representative also comes from a notable personality attached to the team. This time, it's Taylor Swift and her favorite cocktail, the French Blonde. The French Blonde has a similar flavor profile to those Wildflower cocktails, but it actually has a solid recipe, thankfully. It uses gin as its base spirit, adds a bit of Elderflower Liqueur, some Lillet Blanc, which I'll talk about more later on this episode, and then grapefruit juice, as well as either lemon juice or bitters, depending on your preference. Now, obviously there's a lot of overlap between these two drinks with a really solid core of gin and our Elderflower Liqueur. I also knew I had to keep the Lillet Blanc from the French Blonde because I haven't had it before, and this really intrigues me. This is a French wine-based aperitif with a bunch of sort of floral and orange notes to it, so it should play really well in this drink. The other change I've made from sort of the two representatives that I'm bringing together is instead of doing grapefruit juice, I'm using grapefruit soda, which should get some of the grapefruit flavors from the French Blonde, while also bringing in that effervescence from our Wildflower cocktails. So, rationale aside, the final spec for this drink is going to be 1 ounce of our gin. This is the Botanivore gin that I'm using. I love this gin. It is super herbal, lots of sort of, piney notes to it. Really punchy. It's everything I want for my gin. It is unabashed in its strength. 3/4 ounce of our Elderflower Liqueur. Ooh. Awesome bottle, as always. Very great Gatsby. Very Art Deco. I hate measuring 3/4 ounce. And yet I put it in the spec. Half an ounce of our Lillet Blanc. I just had my first taste of this last night. It is lovely stuff. Very similar in some ways to like a dry vermouth. It's got a bit more character, I would say, than a dry vermouth, but it kind of fills a similar role. Then finally, a mere 1/4 ounce of our lemon juice. Quite light on the lemon juice, but that's because we are going to be adding the grapefruit soda to this drink, and so obviously we don't want to go too strong on the acid with this when we are going to be adding more acid in. Whew. Shake those up. Ooh. It actually smells almost like a martini. Very interesting. I think that's that Lillet Blanc making its presence known. Strain that into our coupe glass. And then we are going to top that off with about 3 ounces of our grapefruit soda. This is not a precise measurement, just kind of, top it off to what feels right. There you go, that's the limit of my drink. That's about 3 ounces. All right, and so with our lovely sort of rose gold color to it, this is our French flower. Let's give it a taste. Ooh. Definitely that grapefruit soda comes on strong. Honestly, I think you might even get away with a lighter pour of that grapefruit soda. It is like, oh, this is a lovely drink. It almost feels like the wrong season for this drink. This does feel much more like a kind of spring or summer drink. Making this in October feels a little bit off. But it is a lovely, floral sort of bouquet with a very nice kind of, light effervescence to it. And it's got a really long evolution to it. I think that's probably the most surprising thing. I was getting a little bit concerned on that first sip that I had maybe gone a bit too strong with the grapefruit soda. This is very good grapefruit soda, by the way. This is my first time trying it. Very happy with that. But I was worried I may have gone a bit too strong and kind of washed out all of the other, wonderful floral notes that we have from the gin, from the elderflower, from the Lillet Blanc. But they actually come in, they're just on a bit of a delay, You get a really nice sort of lengthy evolution to this drink, and it really sticks around in your mouth in a very pleasant way for a very long time. Yeah, you get some of that orange, you get some of that elderflower, you get less of the juniper from the gin, but still that sort of whole, herbal bouquet that comes along with it. And it's surprisingly easy to drink. Like, there is not a lot of sweetness in this drink, I mean, the elderflower liqueur is a liqueur, so that's a bit sweet, but it's certainly not one of the sweeter liqueurs that I've had. Lemon juice technically has sugar, but like not a lot. Lillet Blanc, is a wine-based aperitif, so it may have some, but it's still relatively dry as far as things go. And this isn't a super like sugary grapefruit soda, This isn't like what is it? Squirt. It squirts the more common grapefruit soda, right? But yeah, it's like it reads as very sort of juicy and sweet, despite there objectively being very little sugar in this drink, which is a wonderful kind of magic trick that this thing pulls off. Oh yeah. Just lovely. I mean, no off notes in there at all. Everything is in harmony. Everything is in concert. They're playing very well together. And it's just a lovely little drink. I mean, this man, you serve this at like a wedding or a brunch, people are gonna be happy. This is a nice little sipper right here. I do wonder, part of me is wondering if any of the ingredients are maybe unnecessary, Like, can you trim this down at all? But I don't think so. I think each one is actually pulling its weight, even if you can't pinpoint exactly where its notes are coming through. If that makes sense? Like, everybody's contributing to the group project, but they've done a good job of smoothing out the final deliverable, so it doesn't feel like 4 different people working on it. Like, all of the individual ingredients in this drink come together and mesh beautifully into the final result. Yeah, I honestly, I can't think of a single change I would make to this drink. Like, I don't have any edits. Honestly, that's it. That's the drink. I usually, I feel like usually I'd talk about, tweaks I would make. But the more I drink this, the more I think, I put in the right amount of grapefruit soda. Definitely recommend using that fever tree. I think it does its job incredibly well. It still has a lot of that grapefruit flavor to it, while not being overly, cloying or sweet or artificial tasting. It really does just give like the perfect blend of that sort of grapefruit, punch and that like soda, bubbly vibe to it. And we just got a beautiful drink. Again, wrong season for this drink, I think, but a lovely drink nonetheless. I have no complaints. Damn. Well, hopefully our Monday night matchup can live up to such a wonderful drink, but we'll find out in the simulation. All right, the Chiefs get the ball first, and they waste no time getting to work, marching down to the 10-yard line before Pacheco punches it in, scoring within the first 2 minutes. The Commanders attempt to respond as Jaden Daniels takes off scrambling on third down. He easily picks up the first, but doesn't slide. Instead, he has the ball knocked free, and the Chiefs recover the fumble. The Chiefs are unable to do much with it, as their third down QB sneak comes up short. Despite Andy Reid being an aggressive coach and Madden touting their new realistic coaching AIs, they kick the 57-yarder, which Butker unsurprisingly misses. The Commanders are knocking on the Chiefs' door, but Jaden is forced to throw the ball away to avoid a sack on third down. Butker misses all the time, but you know who doesn't miss field goals though? Gay, who hits the 30-yarder to put the Commies on the board. At the end of the first quarter, Mahomes has all the time in the world in the pocket and airmails a deep bomb to Pacheco for the 66-yard touchdown. The Commanders lead a long, methodical drive in the second quarter down to the 12-yard line, where they line up in a super unbalanced formation and hit Noah Brown for their first touchdown of the game. On the other side of the 2-minute warning, the evil Empire strikes back. It's Mahomes to Worthy for the 15-yard touchdown. However, 2 minutes is more than enough time for Daniels, who leads his team down the field and takes this one in untouched for the touchdown. Now the Chiefs do make it to the 38-yard line, and while this is a makeable field goal for any NFL kicker, we're talking about Harrison Butker here, so he misses the 55-yarder and leaves the Chiefs up only 4 at half. Halfway through the third quarter, Commanders are facing third and goal. Jaden takes off and turns into Superman on the 3-yard rushing TD. That lead lasts all of about 5 minutes, as on the first play of the fourth quarter, Mahomes hits a wide-open Noah Gray for the 4-yard touchdown. The Commanders make it to the 6-yard line, but a third down stop forces them to go for it on fourth down, and eventually Jaden just runs out of time and gets sacked. After that, the Chiefs' offense simply refuses to give the ball back and runs out the rest of the clock, locking in their 28-24 victory. This definitely feels like it's going to be a close game, though honestly, with the Chiefs getting Rashee Rice back, I think it'll likely be a higher scoring game than 28-24. These are two teams that really haven't initially lived up to the preseason hype, but it feels like they may just be hiding their power levels for the playoffs. Very clean games from both of these quarterbacks, though Mahomes certainly outdueled Daniels in this one. Both of them had completion percentages north of 85%, but Mahomes had an extra 100-ish passing yards, which translated into 2 more passing TDs. Madden completion percentages always tend to skew higher than their real-world equivalents. Neither of these QBs has had a completion percentage better than 80% in a game so far this season. Jesus fucking Daniels went absolutely crazy style on the ground, though, turning 12 rushes into 127 yards and 2 TDs, even if he did have that one fumble. Now, for any other QB, this would be absolutely insane, but Jaden Daniels did actually have a 127-yard game in 2024 against the Falcons. Sure, it went into overtime and it took 16 rushes and didn't result in any touchdowns, but still, there's precedent. He was certainly more effective than Bill, who only managed 34 yards on his 9 carries. The Chiefs didn't run the ball a lot, but Pacheco was still effective, turning 7 rushes into 45 yards and a touchdown. He was even more effective through the air and in the screen game, though, leading the Chiefs with 6 catches for 108 yards and 1 touchdown. To give you a sense of how crazy this is, that's more receiving yards than he had all of last season. He typically only gets 2 or 3 balls for about 20 yards. The ball was spread around really evenly on the Commanders' side, with Noah Brown, Scary Terry, and Bill all turning 4 or 5 receptions into 40-ish yards. A quiet game for both of Kansas City's tight ends, not particularly surprising for Noah Gray, who only averages about a catch a game in the real world, but certainly disappointing for Kelsey. Very funny that in the video that uses Taylor Swift's favorite cocktail, Kelsey only has 2 catches for 18 yards, which would be his worst performance in a year. Pretty mess stats all around in the Monte Carlo sim, No performances that jump out as particularly impressive, nor especially disappointing. The one notable absence here is Rashee Rice, who is set to return in Week 7 and would likely have boosted the Chiefs' passing/receiving yards in this game. That extra receiving boost would have likely shifted the scores for this matchup upwards, though this game actually has one of the higher scoring most likely outcomes in the Monte Carlo Sims history, with a 17-17 tie having a 1.7% chance of occurring. Now, if that likelihood seems low, you're right, this is one of the most spread out score distributions for the Monte Carlo Sim. Despite these teams scoring 49 points in a few of the 10,000 simulations, the average result is actually lower than the mode, settling on a 15-15 tie. Alright, it's the last game of Week 8, which means we're taking a look at the standings, where honestly not much has changed in the AFC. The North and East continue to pretty much be upside down. The Chiefs rule an AFC West, where every team is at least 500 and has a positive point differential, and Indiana Jones sits atop the AFC South, albeit at a far more muted 4-4. The NFC has been equally static, with the Packers and Eagles remaining undefeated in the simulation, though the Eagles did actually lose to the Giants in Madden again. Pretty much all of the NFC West was on a bye, so not much of a surprise that nothing changed there, and somehow all of the NFC South is above 500, though it does feel like the Bucs and Falcons are the ones fighting for that top spot. Do you agree with the simulations, or do you envision a different future? I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments. As a reminder, our drink for this matchup is the French Flower, with its surprisingly sweet bouquet of floral flavors. If you make it, please let me know what you think, and I'd love to hear your suggestions for what drink should be your team's representative. Stay curious, stay thirsty, and I'll see you in the next one.